actually makes money in the music industry, and where does it really go? Today, I'm diving deep into these questions with Professor Michael J. Sammis, a true industry professional who has had an over 40-year-long career in the music industry, with 25 of those years being at Universal Music Publishing, where he was eventually named president of the production music division. And now he's bringing LA to Indiana and starting our music business program here at IU. So let's dive right in. So most people hear about record labels, but not as much about music publishing. What's the difference, and how do all the parts of the industry, the labels, publishers, distributors, how do they all work together?
Yeah, it's actually a great question and very common. Most people don't have any idea what music publishers do. The easiest explanation is that a recorded music company or a record label is concerned with signing artists. Ariana Grande, Lady Gaga, U2. These are bands, singers, artists. They record music for a record company, a record label. Music publishing companies sign the nameless, faceless people who write the songs. Now, sometimes the artists and the songwriters are one and the same, but as you know, in the world today, you can have a hip-hop track by Kendrick Lamar that has 20 different writers. All of those writers would be signed to publishing companies and have publishing rights. So that's the main difference between recorded music and music publishing. Both of them are concerned with artistry, creating art, and the marriage of the songwriter and the recording artist is part of creating that art. And the streaming services are basically an outlet for that artistry, to get that into the commercial ecosystem, to get it out to consumers. And that, by the way, goes for not only audio streaming companies like Spotify or Tidal or Apple Music, but video streaming companies like YouTube. Those are all vehicles to promote the artistry created by recorded music companies and music publishers.
You've worked across music publishing, production music, and corporate leadership. If someone wants to work in the industry but not necessarily be an artist, where's the best place to start?
Yeah, I would have to say that any experience is good experience. It's no matter what you do, a lot of people have to start at a basic level, at a production music company or at a music publishing company, but no experience is bad experience. And I always tell students that I work with that any kind of experience is all part of your personal and professional DNA.
For artists trying to break out today, would you say that being highly niche or highly versatile is better? What wins in today's music industry?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Versatility can never be underrated. It's always great to be as versatile as you can, especially in an artist sense. However, when you're in an environment where you have streaming companies, I believe the statistics are 120,000 songs a day are uploaded to streaming platforms. And maybe just a couple of years ago, it was only 90,000. That's still a tremendous amount. In 2023, there were 40 million songs uploaded to streaming services in 1 year alone. With that as a backdrop, having a niche outlook as an artist, you need to be unique to set yourself apart. How do you differentiate between artists when there are so many tracks to choose from and algorithms are pointing you in a specific direction? So while versatility is definitely an attribute that should never be overlooked, being unique or being a niche artist is of the utmost importance to succeed in today's environment.
So what marketing strategies do you think are underutilized by artists today?
Another interesting question. You know, when you talk about real estate, people say location, location, location. While I don't think it's underutilized, for artists, I would say social media, social media, social media. Look at TikTok, for example. Supposedly 70 artists in the last year were broken on the TikTok model. And also a recent article came out in Billboard that said 84% of artists that charted in the global top 200 first went viral on TikTok. Now that's just one app. Now there are many other outlets in social media for that, but in today's environment, you can't underestimate how important all social media is, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or podcasts or anything you can do on social media is really the way the music business is structured today.
What would you say is the most overlooked stream of revenue for artists today? What can we really focus on more?
Yeah, I don't think there are any revenue streams that are actually overlooked, but one of the most important revenue streams for independent artists, emerging artists, is, I'll call it the marriage of music and visual. And when you say that, most people think about like a YouTube video, but I'm talking more about getting music into a commercial, getting music into a television show, getting music into motion picture. The marriage of music and visual images is so powerful that it sometimes creates a whole new audience or renews your audience just because of the exposure. Think about things like Kate Bush getting a song in Stranger Things. 40 years after it was originally released, the song comes out in Stranger Things and goes +1 in 8 countries, 40 years after it was originally released. Same thing with the closing song from the show Breaking Bad. This was a 40-plus-year-old song used in that movie, created a whole new audience for that band, for that song, and that song became the #1 downloaded song on Apple iTunes at the time, and huge on Apple Music. So, not only is it great from a fee perspective to find a way to get your music outletted into visual media, but it is also unbelievable exposure for artists on any level.
If you were an independent artist starting today, what's the single most important career move you'd make for a sustainable career in the industry?
Right, so to my way of thinking, diversity is the most important thing for artists who are emerging today. And what that basically means is don't stay in one lane. You want to be involved in all aspects of your musical career. So if you're an artist, make believe you're involved in songwriting, or make sure you're involved in songwriting. Collaborate with other artists. Do duets with other artists. Try to write music for film or TV. Maybe try jingle writing. Maybe try writing for production music company. To me, today's artist needs to be broad in terms of the output of their artistry. So it would really behoove your career to make sure you don't just stay in one lane, but instead make yourself a career in the music industry entire.
You've seen artists rise and fall. What would you say is the defining characteristic that determines long-term success versus just short-term hype?
There are actually two things that I think are incredibly important to artists to not be in a bad position in their career. One is understand the business, and that's kind of what a music business program is all about. Make sure you understand where you're supposed to make your money from, the revenue streams that are belonging to you as an artist, and make sure that you perfect all of those so that you're getting rewarded for your artistry. The second thing is, and this is very, very important, developing the right team. Having the right team of people around you is critical. And by team, I mean collaborators, co-writers, artists, business managers, attorneys, managers. The strength and importance of your music team can't be understated. It's so important. And when you slip up, you have somebody there to pick up the slack. So, like I said, those I think are the two most important things to keep people out of trouble, understand the business, and make sure you have a strong team that you trust.
So can you tell me about your most memorable or impactful deal that you've had in your career or at Universal Music Publishing, and what made it stand out to you?
Well, early in my career, I did some work, before I worked for Universal, I did some work on the artist side. I worked with Billy Joel and Paul Simon and many other artists too. But those two stand out because I worked with them early in my career, let's say in the early 90s, and then 10 to 15 years later at Universal, because of the work I had done with them, and I guess I like to think the favorable experience they had with me working with them, I convinced them to come to Universal Music Publishing. and we became the global music publisher for both of those iconic artists. I always considered those not only validating for the work that I did for them early in my career, but a feather in my cap because they are iconic artists, and to represent their music meant the world to me.
With so much music available at our fingertips, do you think that people are actually discovering new music, or are algorithms just reinforcing what we already like?
It's a fantastic question. I actually think it depends on the demographic. If you're talking about people in my demographic, I think we just listen to what we're used to and don't do a lot of exploring music or playlists created by the algorithms. If you're talking about people in a younger demographic, I think they're all about exploring and finding the next new artist or finding something that their friends haven't heard about yet so they can turn their friends on to some new music. So I really think there's a dividing line between, and I think the streaming services play very well to those dividing lines. You can do whatever you want. You can follow the playlists and search for new music. You can curate your own and do your own thing and just listen to the stuff you're comfortable with. But I think whether it works or not depends on the demographic.
So if I were an incoming freshman in this music business program, what's one thing that I should focus on to maximize my time here?
Get involved. The music business program is a great partnership between the Jacobs School of Music and the Kelley School of Business. In many ways, this is left side of the brain, right side of the brain. Creative side, business side working together, and that's what music business is all about. And by get involved, I mean, you also will have access to a larger social network, being involved with people from the Jacobs side and being involved with people from the Kelley side. And that's it. I can't overstate the importance of that, because your social network at university becomes your professional network after university, and that's as important as anything. So diversity and get involved.
Now, you've worked with some of the most legendary artists, the biggest companies in music. Looking back, what's one defining lesson that shaped your perspective on success in this industry?
Don't be afraid of change. Embrace change. The music industry in many ways embraced a lot of concepts that were at one time anathema to the music industry. And now they've really created an environment which is very forward-thinking. Now the music industry embraces technology. Now the music industry embraces transparency for artists. Those things make a big difference in terms of how you're perceived by the outside public, how you're perceived by your peers, and more importantly, how you're perceived by artists and their representatives. And I think the music industry's embracing these things that at one point they didn't has really opened up things to create for a more powerful music business for everyone.
So, what excites you most about the future of the industry?
Kind of the same thing that excites me most about the past of the music industry, and that is that change is inevitable in terms of musical styles, who are the biggest artists of the day, who are the emerging artists that are going to have an impact socially and throughout the music industry. So, I like to think back to the early 90s when, grunge music came out, and that was a completely new genre. And I'm really excited to see where music heads next, from a creativity perspective. The music business will always evolve around technology and things like that, but the creative side is more interesting to watch, to see what whets the appetite of the buying public.
Now, we couldn't finish off the interview without doing something fun, so we're going to go into a rapid fire round.
Oh, rapid fire, that should be very fun. So for that, I'm going to put the shades on. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. New York or LA?
Love them both, but I'm going to have to say New Orleans.
Okay, we love that. Shuffle playlist or curate order?
Well, again, I'm a dinosaur, so I'm a shuffle guy.
Shuffle, okay. Favorite streaming service?
I am subscribed to Tidal.
Tidal, okay, nice. Soundtrack to your life?
Yeah, the soundtrack to my life, I would pick a song, and it's called The End of the Innocents by Don Henley. Huge song in the mid-'80s. I advise you to go listen to it.
What's your favorite jingle?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a jingle anymore because jingle is kind of like a passé type of terminology. We call it audio branding now, but I have to say Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. It's a commercial and it's goofy, but it's a hook and it just stays with you. And you hear Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. You know exactly what it is and you've heard it 1,000 times a day.
Yes, I have. Favorite music venue?
The Hollywood Bowl is the best music venue in North America.
And the world?
I haven't been to too many venues outside the U.S., but I have been to the Royal Albert Hall, which is amazing. But the Hollywood Bowl.
Hollywood Bowl, all the
Go
way.
to the Hollywood Bowl, beautiful.
Okay, and last one. What's the last song that you listened to?
This has to do with one of my students in my class, but believe it or not, last song I listened to was a song called I'm Not in Love by a band called 10cc. It was a #1 hit in 1975.
Wow. Thank you, Mike, so much for joining me. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.